Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. It's been almost 2 years since that Christmas party, and I still remember every second of that night like it was yesterday. I can hear the music pounding, feel the warmth of the room, and see the dim glow of the fairy lights strung up around the place. The whole company was there, laughing, drinking, dressed in their finest, and my wife, Evelyn, was right by my side, looking beautiful in her sparkly red dress. But let me start from the beginning. Evelyn and I had been together for 8 years, married for 5. We had the sort of relationship that most people envied, or at least I thought we did. Sure, we had our share of arguments, but there was always love there, or so I believed. She was charming, intelligent, and successful in her role as a marketing director for her company, and I couldn't have been prouder. I trusted her, completely. We were approaching Christmas, and Evelyn's company was hosting a big holiday party. Apparently, her boss, Gavin, whom I had never met in person but had heard quite a bit about, had made it mandatory for employees to bring their spouses or partners to the event. It's supposed to be some big bonding thing, she explained, rolling her eyes as she did so. I had to admit, I felt a bit uneasy. Gavin's name had come up in conversations more times than I cared to count, and usually in a way that made me feel small. "Are you sure you don't talk about him a bit much?" I'd asked her once. She'd laughed it off, calling it work talk and saying he was just her boss, and that he actually intimidated her sometimes with his high expectations. That night, Gavin didn't seem intimidating at all. The party was extravagant, live band, an open bar, guests dressed to the nines. Evelyn and I mingled, meeting her colleagues, chatting, laughing. Every so often, though, I'd notice her glancing toward Gavin, who was standing in a corner with a few of his colleagues, laughing and talking confidently. He seemed to fill every room he was in with his presence, and it made me uncomfortable. I shrugged it off, figuring I was just overthinking it. A couple of hours into the party, we'd both had more than a few drinks. I was chatting with a few guys from finance when I noticed Evelyn was no longer at my side. I scanned the room, but she was nowhere in sight. "Have you seen Evelyn?" I asked a few people around me. One woman, Claire, looked at me with a slight hesitation before answering, I think I saw her head upstairs with Gavin." Something about the way Claire avoided my eyes made me uneasy. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but a sense of dread settled in my gut. Trying to keep my cool, I walked toward the elevator, hoping, praying really, that I'd find Evelyn doing something harmless, like talking to her boss about an upcoming project. The elevator ride felt endless, and with each second that passed, my anxiety grew. When the doors finally opened, I stepped out into a quieter, dimly lit hallway. It was different up here. There were offices with closed doors, some partially open with couples whispering, some more occupied, if you catch my drift. The holiday cheer seemed a bit darker up here, laced with secrets, with guilt. At the end of the hall, Gavin's office stood out, a glass-walled corner room with blinds drawn tightly shut, creating an aura of privacy. My steps slowed as I neared the door. The closer I got, the more my heart pounded. I wasn't even sure what I was expecting to find, but something in the pit of my stomach told me I needed to see for myself. Just then, faint sounds filtered through the door, soft murmurs, and then unmistakably, a woman's moan. I froze. The sound was muffled, but it cut through me like a knife. My pulse quickened, my hands clenched, and a cold wave of disbelief washed over me. Every instinct told me to turn around, to walk away and pretend I hadn't heard anything. But that same nagging voice in my head, the one that had brought me upstairs in the first place, urged me to face it, to know the truth. I took a deep breath, reached out and pushed the door open, hoping I was wrong about what I'd find. There they were. Evelyn was on his desk, her hair messy, her red dress bunched up around her waist. Gavin was, well, he didn't even have the decency to look shocked. Evelyn turned her head, her face frozen in horror when she saw me standing there. "Mark, she stammered, scrambling off the desk, desperately tugging her dress down, eyes wide with panic. What the hell is this, Evelyn?" My voice was barely more than a whisper, shaking with a mixture of fury and disbelief. "Mark, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen," she said, her voice breaking. But I wasn't having any of it. "Didn't mean for what? To cheat on your husband at your office Christmas party with your boss?" My words came out colder than I'd ever thought I was capable of. Gavin stood there, adjusting his tie, clearly uncomfortable, but also seemingly uninterested in making excuses. Evelyn reached for me, her hands trembling as tears spilled down her cheeks. Mark, please. It wasn't meant to happen this way. It was a mistake. A horrible, horrible mistake. A mistake? I laughed bitterly, my voice echoing in the empty hallway. Sleeping with your boss? That's not a mistake, Evelyn. That's a choice. Gavin finally spoke, breaking his silence. Listen, Mark, maybe we should all just take a breather. Things got out of hand, but… Out of hand? I cut him off, my voice barely recognizable, filled with pure fury. You're my wife's boss, Gavin. You are the one who has no boundaries. You had no right to take advantage of her like this. What the hell is wrong with you? He shrugged as if that one action could excuse what he'd done. It was infuriating. You're not even sorry, are you? I snarled. You don't have a shred of decency. You didn't just screw my wife. You humiliated me, both of us. Gavin's expression didn't change. In fact, his lips curled into a faint, almost smug grin. Then, in a voice that dripped with venom, he said, Listen, man, it's not my fault that your wife is a slut. I guess if she loved you and respected you enough, that wouldn't have happened. Apparently something was missing. What he said made me furious, the words cutting into my chest like jagged shards of glass. Without thinking, I swung at him, my fist connecting with his jaw. For a split second, I felt a rush of satisfaction. He had it coming. But then, as I stood there, breath coming heavy and fast, something clicked inside my head. The adrenaline rushed through me, and I realized he was right. I was furious at him for what he'd done, for betraying me in the most humiliating way possible. But there was also a sickening truth I couldn't ignore. Gavin was a man. And Evelyn? She was a very attractive woman. He was just doing what men like him would do when they see a woman like Evelyn. He knew she was married, but he didn't care. He'd crossed a line, but she had willingly crossed it with him. I exhaled slowly, feeling the heat of my anger dissipate slightly as the realization sank in. This wasn't all on Gavin. It was on her, too. She had allowed it to happen, and that, more than anything, was what stung the most. I turned back to Evelyn. Was this going on for a while, Evelyn? I asked, my voice now cold and steady, devoid of any emotion I once had for her. Was this your big secret? Is this what's been happening at all those late meetings? Her eyes dropped to the floor, and I saw the shame in the way her shoulders slumped. She didn't have to say a word. Her silence spoke volumes. I took a step closer, my voice rising, cracking with a mix of heartbreak and rage. How long has this been going on? How many times have you lied to me about where you were, about who you were with? I could feel the pressure building in my chest, the weight of betrayal suffocating me. Was I really that stupid, Evelyn? Did you think I wouldn't see it? Or was I just some fool to you, too wrapped up in my own life to notice? She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, tears spilled from her eyes, and she took a hesitant step toward me. Mark, please, Don't, I snapped, holding my hand up. Save your apologies. They mean nothing now. I shook my head, the anger surging back to the surface. You've been lying to me. You've been sneaking around behind my back with him. How many nights did I sleep alone thinking everything was fine while you were out with him, screwing him? Her face crumpled and she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't mean for this to happen. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, I swear. I pulled my arm away, looking down at her tear-streaked face, and all I could feel was a hollow ache in my chest. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd loved for 8 years, was a stranger to me now. There was no trust left to hold on to. I'm done, Evelyn, I said, my voice empty. You've crossed a line you can't uncross. No, Mark, please, she begged, clutching my hands desperately. I'll do anything, please. Just don't leave me. It was a mistake, and it won't happen again. I swear on everything I love. Everything you love? I shook my head. The way I see it, you didn't love me enough to stop yourself. There was silence. Evelyn's face was soaked with tears, and Gavin, well, he just stood there, clearly realizing that his little Christmas fling had come to a messy end. I looked at Evelyn one last time. I'll send you the divorce papers after the holidays. Merry Christmas, Evelyn. She broke down, sinking to her knees, sobbing, begging me not to do it. But I was done. I turned, walked out of that office, and didn't look back. The days after were a whirlwind of paperwork, of sorry texts from Evelyn, of awkward phone calls from mutual friends who had heard rumors. She tried everything to make it right. She wanted counseling. She wanted another chance, but every time I saw her, I couldn't get that image out of my head. I filed for divorce a few days after the start of the new year. Evelyn tried one last time to stop me, showing up at my apartment, looking exhausted and defeated. "Mark, please, I'll quit my job. I'll cut Gavin out of my life entirely. I'll do anything." But I had made up my mind. "Evelyn, I appreciate that you're sorry. I really do. But sorry isn't enough to make me forget what you did." She finally accepted it that night. I think in some twisted way she thought I would eventually forgive her. But I couldn't, and I didn't want to. For me, love was loyalty, commitment, trust, and she had shattered all of it. Months passed and I moved on. Eventually, I started dating again, cautiously, taking it slow. From what I heard, Evelyn initially kept her job but distanced herself from Gavin. Rumor had it that she was demoted, which made sense. Gavin's reputation took a hit too after word of the scandal spread around the office. She lost the respect of her colleagues, and I heard she'd been passed over for a promotion she was expecting. But roughly a month after the incident, Evelyn quit. She couldn't handle the whispers, the sideways glances, the awkward atmosphere that hung around her like a shadow. It wasn't just the job she lost. It was the sense of pride she'd always carried with her. The last time I heard from her was a handwritten letter that arrived a few months ago. She poured out her regrets, told me she wished she could take it all back, that losing me had been the biggest mistake of her life. I read it once, felt a flicker of sadness, and then threw it in the trash. Because in the end, trust is fragile. Once you break it, there's no putting it back together the way it was before. Thank you for watching.